Hey guys, Toolman Tim here. Today we're going to answer the question, why should I or shouldn't I get a diesel generator? I'm going to share with you the 10 reasons why diesel is better than gasoline and the 5 reasons that it isn't. Number 1, it's much safer than gasoline. Diesel has a much higher flash point of 126 degrees Fahrenheit compared to gasoline's -45. That means it needs to be almost 200 degrees warmer for diesel to turn into volatile, explosive, ignitable fumes. That means you can store diesel with a lot more peace of mind. You can keep it in a shed or a garage and have way less worry that way. Diesel creates 90% less carbon monoxide than gasoline, making it a much safer choice if you have to use it in confined or residential areas. Number 2, longer fuel storage life. Untreated diesel is going to last 2 to 4 times longer than untreated gasoline. A minimum of a year for diesel. And with some personal anecdotes that I got on the last video, some people have used diesel up to 10 years past its shelf life. Since diesel is much less volatile than gasoline, it also evaporates at a much slower rate, which means you're going to lose less volume over time. Number 3, diesel engines are made to run under load for long periods of time. They run at lower RPMs than gasoline engines, and diesel itself is a much better lubricant than gasoline, which means overall, they're not going to wear down like you think they would. They're literally designed to run hot and hard and long. Another cool little feature of diesel engines is they don't require as frequent cool down periods. Number 4, diesel gives you way better fuel economy. Just on capacity alone, diesel in the same gallon carries 15% more energy, 137,000 BTUs versus 120,000 BTUs in gasoline. Diesel also uses significantly less fuel under a heavy load. The engine itself turns at slower RPMs, and overall, you're going to use 30% less diesel than gasoline, which means one of two things. Either you can store less, or you're going to get significantly more energy out of the same stored volume. Number 5, and this is the prepper's favorite one. It's much easier to get during an emergency. And why is that? Well, let me lay it out for you. Number 1, it's available at a lot more locations, including card locks, places that are only available if you have a special card to get into. There's less diesel vehicles on the road, which means you have less competition for the amount of fuel that's out there. It tends to be stored in much larger quantities because the vehicles that do need it use it by the boatload. Government treats diesel to a higher standard because it's considered involved in critical infrastructure, which means during an emergency scenario, they're going to prioritize the distribution of diesel over gasoline, which means when the pumps do run dry, you're going to be having access to it much quicker. Number 6, they're going to run on all kinds of alternative fuels. Vegetable oil, clean or used, just make sure you filter out the French fries. With a few modifications, or not really at all, they can run on kerosene or jet fuel. They can run on different types of alcohol, moonshine, ethanol, methanol. You can mix it in with diesel to extend the amount of diesel you have as well. You can also run it on hydraulic oil, used or new. Again, filter it first. Motor oil, used or new. Transmission fluid, or even paint thinner. Number 7, diesel engines overall last significantly longer with less maintenance than gasoline. You might say, well, Tim, why is that? Well, number 1, less moving parts, which means there's less to replace. Overall, diesel engines are made with heavier parts that take longer to wear out. Overall, the average diesel engine lasts 10 times longer than gasoline. Number 8, diesel generators have a much higher resale value than gasoline generators. And why is that? Well, simply because they're made to last longer. They're made with heavier parts, they're made to put up with more abuse and more long-time use. You ever go to an auction or a government surplus place, people are willing to pay money for used diesel generators on the secondary market. Keep an eye out at auctions. Keep an eye out at military surplus places. Look for the trailer-style diesel generators. Number 9, diesel engines handle damp environments much better than gasoline. Since diesel is less prone to vaporization and it uses compression instead of ignition, diesel works significantly better in high humid environments. Also, diesel engines are less prone to vapor lock. What does that mean? Well, that's basically where the fuel vaporizes and then air locks the fuel line system. It's not going to start or it's not going to run properly if that happens. Number 10, something else other people don't always think about. Diesel generators are a perfect complement to a farm. If you have a farm or an acreage, there's a good chance you already have diesel on hand, whether it's a slip tank in the back of your truck or it's a standing holding tank on your property. The equipment you have probably runs on diesel as well. Work trucks, tractors, heavy equipment. Diesel has a longer storage life, which makes it ideal for rural properties with lack of natural gas supply. So if you're living out in the country, you can't get plugged into what I call the unlimited supply of natural gas, your next best option might be diesel. You can get PTO generators, which means you can hook it up to an existing piece of equipment you have so you don't have to buy an engine, just the generator side of things. Now, here are the 5 reasons why diesel isn't better than gasoline. Number 1, diesel generators are heavier. Because they're designed to run longer with heavier parts, that means overall they're 30 to 50% heavier for the same volume of a generator, which means it's going to be more difficult to move them around. Now, number 2, there's less selection overall. Less companies are making diesel engines. The ones that do don't offer much of a selection, and they don't offer any entry-level models at all. So if you're looking for diesel engines, you're going to have a much smaller pool to pick from. Number 3, higher upfront costs. Since diesel generators are made with heavier equipment and pieces, that means that it's going to cost more. The fact that there aren't any entry-level ones, the fact that there's less companies making them, the fact that there's a less of a market out there, keeps the cost significantly higher. Number 4, they're harder to work on as well. Now, I did mention earlier, they're easier to maintain because they last longer, but when things finally break on any diesel piece of equipment, it almost always takes a specialized person to work on it. If it's something simple, sure, you can do it. But all things being equal, there is a hell of a lot more gasoline mechanics out there than there are diesel mechanics. And number 5, beyond the lack of selection, there's also a lack of multi-fuel options. So if you're a big fan of redundancy, like I am, there really isn't a multi-fuel option in the diesel fuel field. So if you ask, who is currently making diesel generators? Well, it's a pretty short list on the market at the moment. Generac, Yanmar, Winco, and Gillette. If you go to absolutegenerators.com, type in diesel as the fuel source, you can look them up there, but there just isn't a lot. So hopefully that helps you decide on whether diesel is right for you or not. But if you're going down the rabbit hole right now of choosing a generator and you want to know how to size a generator for your family's needs, then check out this video I did right here. And if you stuck around to the end of this video, that means I'm making the content just for you. So do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, support the channel, and stick around. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.